did want to take the opportunity to provide our perspective on cybersecurity, your security posture, and like he said, how we tend to look at user security awareness and really building a culture around that. So when we think about cybersecurity, we kind of break it down to what are really the outcomes that we're worried about, right? What are the problems we're trying to solve for? And we call these guys the four horsemen of cybersecurity, and they represent downtime, data loss, compliance failures, or data breaches typically. And downtime and data loss, these are things that we're familiar with. Obviously, we've struggled with these things in IT for a long, long time. Traditionally, they've been associated with infrastructure failures, certainly human failures, right? We've had our fair share of worms and Trojans and viruses over the years. I mean, cybersecurity, the idea of cybersecurity and the importance of it is obviously not new to us. However, there has been, I think, traditionally a lack of focus put on security. It's always been kind of the afterthought. Security has been a bug, not a feature. And when I say bug, I mean it's been a nuisance, right? With cybersecurity, you know, I think there was some hubris involved there too. We thought that the tools we were using were good enough or better than good enough. And I think there was also this mentality with a lot of us that we're never going to be a target. This is only stuff that's happening to the big guys. Obviously, after hearing Brian and his partner talk today, it's pretty obvious that that's not the reality we live in. We kind of knew that already. About 5 years ago or so, a lot of things changed for us at GCS, and it was really around the advent of ransomware, and more specifically, the capability of a bad actor being able to monetize disruption through the use of, say, anonymous currency like Bitcoin. And that really changed the game for us. And I think at that point, we started realizing that these siloed security tools, while they were great and best of breed in those individual areas, the siloed tools, the approaches that we were using just weren't cutting it. So we started looking for better ways to do this, better ways to centralize our security, and just have better approaches and tools that actually are effective. So the threats we see coming from all different angles. We're more dispersed than ever before. We have really distributed workforces now. We're creating more data than we ever have. We're sharing more data than we ever have. We're doing it from a multitude of devices, and we're doing it from a multitude of different geographies. And so that presents a real big challenge, right, for IT and security in general, because the perimeter has moved. And the perimeter that we've always tried to protect is within the four cozy walls of our brick and mortar offices, if we still have them, and more specifically behind the really nice firewalls that we've all spent a lot of money on, right, to protect us. And we have to kind of shift that mentality of the firewall really being the end user. So tying this back to people, right, being the focus of today, and user security awareness, that's really our firewall now. It's people. And yes, it's important to obviously safeguard data and protect the devices that they're using, you know, protect the networks, but it's really the people, and that's kind of where we have really shifted more of our focus and our technology tools and approaches towards. So the path to a stronger security posture, when we talk about security posture in general, this is a measurement of your business's cybersecurity strength, your ability to predict, prevent, and react to an ever-changing landscape of threats, right? We don't just use tools and technology, obviously. We use a combination of people, processes, and tools all together, working together. The people part of this, user security awareness training, obviously, information sharing, talking about security in your all-hands meetings or your company meetings, collaborating with local law enforcement agencies like the FBI, testing your users on a regular basis with phishing tests, right, to make sure that they're paying attention. These are the kinds of things that we talk about when we're trying to build a culture of security awareness. The process piece of this really talks about policies and procedures, right? Good examples of these would be onboarding or offboarding an employee. We need to make sure that they only have access to the things that they need to have access to, this idea of least privilege or just enough access. If we're offboarding that employee, we need to make sure, obviously, that they're they're locked out of everything, that they no longer have access to company data. So how do we go about those things? Tools will help, right, to a certain degree, and some of these things require tools, but it all starts with people, right? It all starts with having the right policies and procedures in place. We've seen some of the most well-fortified businesses out there from a technology perspective fall victim to cybersecurity incidents simply because they weren't paying attention or just didn't have the right people, the right processes in place. Then, of course, tools. Tools is a big part of what we do. The tools have evolved quite a bit, thankfully. The siloed security tools that we used to use, the traditional antivirus tools that we used to use and sometimes still do, we've mostly moved on from those things. And the whole goal of these tools is to really protect identities, devices, and data, right? The only reason that we have technology within our businesses is so people can create, edit, access data, right? And the only way they can typically do that is through devices. And so those are kind of the three key pillars that we look at when we're trying to protect things with the tools that we have. And then the last, important piece to this is continually monitoring and adapting. None of these things are set and forget. There's a cliche saying that security is a journey, not a destination. It's true, and that's what this is about, is taking the threat analytics, the vulnerability assessment data, all of the feedback that we're getting from our users, from our security tools, from law enforcement, from the community in general, and piecing that stuff together to help us inform how we're going to configure and approach our future security policies, procedures, and even controls, technical controls within the tool sets we have. So going back to putting the focus on people, right? If we think about people being the new firewall, what is the most direct, most anonymous, most easy way for any bad actor to get in front of your user? It's through email. This is what people still use in 2022. I bet many of y'all in this room, myself included, probably don't want to admit how much time they have to spend in email every single day and every single week, right? We get up every morning, we check our email. And so this is really what we're seeing is still, compared to what you guys are seeing, this is one of the biggest vectors of attack still. It's where we focus a lot of our attention. Spam email, spoofed email, I know these guys covered some of that. Phishing, right? The types of phishing, spear phishing, social engineering, those are all things that we're seeing across our customer base too. Spoofed email, for instance, can trick a lot of people. It's an email that comes from your boss or whoever in your company. It's their email address. It's the body looks, you cannot tell it's not coming from him, and they may not be trying to get you to click on a link or a payload, right, an attachment. They may just be trying to simply get you to respond, because in that response, there are ways for them to harvest things out through social engineering, like your email address is valid. If I respond to a spoofed email or a spam email, if it's a bad actor on the other side, they're not necessarily trying to catch me right there with a link or a piece of malware. They can tell that my email address is valid. They can see that I'm currently employed with a business, right, which might encourage them to go do some social engineering against our HR department or accounting department to try to get social security numbers, tax information, maybe calling Verizon if it's my number's registered on the company account to SIM swap me and take over things that way. Confirming other contact details, right? Like in your email signature, you might have just given away or at least confirmed what your direct dial number is. Maybe that you're in the HR department or that you're in the finance department. An email schema of others in the company. If they know my email address is first initial, last name, if they want to spearfish Marty, for instance, it's pretty easy to figure out what his email address is. Now, we're not trying to pretend that this is sophisticated. Obviously, anybody can just use a permutation of email addresses. But the point being here is that there are people on the other side, and they alluded to this earlier as well, they're looking for things like this, right? They're trying to trap you. They're looking on social media accounts to see who your dog is and where you went to dinner. And piecing all of these things together, it's pretty scary what can happen. Accidental clicks, obviously even worse. This is, clicking on payloads, email attachments, links. We actually have tools now that do point of click protection. So the filters we have are pretty good at filtering out a lot of the junk. As we know, things still squeak through. Even the best of us will click, hover over something, think it's real. We do have some tools in place that will look at that, and it's called sandboxing. Some people refer to it that way, where it'll take that link or that malware and it'll go follow that in real time, detonate it, see if it's bad or not, based on some heuristics, and then send it on back to you if it's clean. Again, like any of these technology tools, multi-factor, all these things we're talking about, none of these things are absolutely foolproof, right? And so, talking about devices, data, or users and email being a vector, devices obviously are important to protect. We have a lot of neat ways of protecting devices now, managing them through cloud management tools and applying security tools to where we don't need line of sight to a firewall or a server. We can enable a true work from anywhere experience, but still have a level of security and visibility that we really truthfully never had before. When it comes to devices, we have ways to do remote wipes, right? If it's a company laptop, if it's enrolled into the system and it's lost or stolen, we can initiate company wipes. We can mitigate these kind of risks by encrypting the local disks, on machines. So if a bad actor did obtain it and we couldn't remote wipe it, they can't really pull the hard drive out and do anything meaningful with it. We can posture check devices every time they touch your environment. We can see that they have antivirus running, that real-time protection's enabled, that all the security requirements we've designed for our organization are being met each and every time that device talks to us. And down to antivirus tools, right? Antivirus traditionally is going to just download a definition database, and as long as it's in there, it's going to catch it if it sees that in your environment, right? That is an example of an old approach that just doesn't work as well anymore. And you may have heard these terms of XDR or EDR tools or next-gen antivirus. And the whole idea here is to look at behaviors on machines in addition to the definition database downloads. But this is really helpful for zero-day threats or near zero-day threats. These are things that they're happening right now, but nobody's named that thing. Maybe it's a ransomware variant, looks a lot like that last one, but there's no name for it. It hasn't been reverse engineered. It hasn't been put in a database. It hasn't been pushed to your machine. Sometimes that whole process can happen really, really fast. It's amazing, but a lot of times it takes a while for those things to occur. When you look at ransomware, when you look at some of these common things that happen on machines, what you see is that there's common signals. There's telltale signs that happen. Suddenly a lot of unusual administrative activity. There's a script running here in an administrative context that doesn't normally run, right? There's dozens and dozens of things, and a lot of this is driven by machine learning and AI that's in the cloud. These are tools that, at least to me, for a long time, were just kind of pie in the sky, Elon Musk kind of stuff, right? Machine learning and AI is actually here. It's in the Microsoft cloud specifically. It's in a lot of the public clouds now, but we're using it every single day. And it's stuff like this that doesn't require a human being to watch a screen or study log files all day. It's looking at behaviors on machines. It's looking at behaviors in the way that people log in, and it's creating baselines and looking for anomalies and helping that human element, right, of missing it with our own eyeballs or being asleep at 3 in the morning when that really important alert comes in. So there's a lot of cool automation and other things like that are helping users look out for the symptoms, but having the right tools in place as well can be that nice kind of parachute. This is about insider risk. When we think about insider risk, we typically think about bad actors, right? There's obviously some bad apples out in the world. You guys deal with them a lot. But most people are good people, right? Especially our employees, the people we hire. Hopefully we're going through some types of vetting process or background checks when we do hire people in. But people make mistakes, right? And that's really what we're trying to solve for when we talk about insider risk, is we're solving for negligence, we're solving for poor judgment, we're solving for accidents. And this is where the tools and the processes really tend to kind of take more of a spotlight here. So this is the last slide, and I think what I wanted to leave y'all with is, as technology consultants in the private sector at least, we exist to outsource these capabilities to businesses within our community that don't have the expertise, the time, don't know how to do it, right? Whether you have internal IT or you don't have internal IT, it's the people, the processes, and the tools that we've really combined together into a very easy to understand managed security service that we happen to call Secure Cloud. It's really powered by 2 things. GCS, of course, first, bringing the people and the processes processes being scaled out, processes to monitor many environments at once, security team, dedicated security team, incident response capabilities all the way down to kind of general tech support needs. And then last but not least, powered by Microsoft Cloud. We use the Microsoft Cloud, specifically Microsoft 365 and Azure, and we use the highest level of enterprise security tools that they offer as part of this. And what we like about that is these tools are under one hood and they're made to drive pretty much any road. And what that means is under one hood, I guess why that's important is going back to the siloed security tools that we used to use. Those tools were great in their own individual silos, but they didn't talk to each other. Having the tools all under one hood provides, especially with the cloud, the ability to take what would otherwise be what we call low fidelity signals from all these different things, right? When you're signing in, we're monitoring all those sign-in alerts. Your devices, when they're checking in, we're looking at a lot of things there. We're looking at data movement, right? Individually by themselves, these might be low fidelity signals that aren't telling us much, but the security graph, the AI and the machine learning that's baked into a lot of these things today can take those low fidelity signals and paint a pretty high fidelity picture, right? A security incident that can then go in front of a human being. And to take it even a step further, some of these tools today are amazing and provide orchestration and automation, which means we see something, the system sees something, it automatically enforces MFA right at that moment in time at sign-in if it's not already being enforced, which it should be, hopefully, but if it's not, it can do things like that. It can lock out an account in real time. So again, we don't need necessarily human beings staffed all the time. We need them, and we need a lot of them, but we don't necessarily need them at 3 in the morning for those things that are really easy to prevent. And when I say they're made for any road, it's that these tools are relevant and affordable to the 5-person plumbing shop on Main Street, all the way up to the Fords, the GMs, the Teslas of the world. For the first time, in our history, we can see small and medium-sized businesses being able to take advantage of the same toolkits that these Fortune 50s are using. And so it's a really neat time for us, I think, in getting the word out and meeting as we meet and talk to our customers, especially with COVID and things being accelerated, especially adoption of cloud being accelerated so much. We saw a lot of people do it without a lot of guidance because they just had to, right? They had to figure out how to get people connected. And so we were already going down this road and this path pre-COVID, but obviously that accelerated things quite a bit. But we are looking to get more feedback from our customers, learn more about their businesses, how they're doing things, what keeps them up at night, because the risks vary wildly and the compliance needs vary wildly across different businesses. And of course, collaborating with folks like the FBI, right? And any other local law enforcement agencies or otherwise that might be helpful in just that whole information sharing process. So this is what we do. I know that there's some of y'all in the room, we're already using these tools to help you. And there's many of you in this room, I'm sure, that aren't using these tools. And so we'd love an opportunity to really just at a minimum talk to any of y'all about security, right? See where you're at on that journey, how you're doing. And see how we might be able to help you guys do things a little bit better even. But really keep in mind it starts with people. The processes, the tools are super important, but really it's about people. And so I think going back to security awareness training, making sure people understand a lot of the stuff you guys talked about was really great and I think really spot on and echoes a lot of the things that we talk to our customers about too. So that's really it. I think I really want to thank both of y'all for taking the time out of your schedules to come and do this with us. It was really neat. I want to thank all you GCSers here for driving attendance, but really I want to thank everyone here in the audience for coming out and being part of this and being willing to come listen to us talk and PowerPoint for an hour.